Well, hi all. Thank you for spending a little time with me on this beautiful Sunday. This is a question and answer session that is prompted out of people asking me questions coming from the newsletter that I send out every month. We had a lot of questions this month, and I'm going to do the best that I can to get to everything and everyone. And you're welcome, of course, to email me later on if there's something that we didn't cover as fully as you'd like, or if I just missed it. So we got seven questions, and I'm going to read them to you, and then I'll bundle them, as we go along. First question I got was from Leela, and she said, with the space junk hitting the dark side of the moon, will it be a while before we experience the effect of this? And will it affect us in our areas of life where the moon sits in our natal chart, or should we be looking at our progress chart, or both? Interesting question. Anyway, second question was actually question 2, 4, and 6 was about Ukraine and Russia. Will peace be restored? Also, is there going to be an impact on US elections? Okay, and that came from a long list of people. And I've tried to, in the talk that we're doing today, tried to bundle it so that we get as much as we can on this topic. The third question came from Judy Luther. It harkens back to the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn on December 2020. Is this the beginning of a 200-year cycle? What changes our focus and how quickly does it shift? So much is happening in the world. You noted climate change, the pandemic, and the war in Europe, teaching us that we are all connected. It appears that the global financial system will experience a transition as well. What does this all look like through the lens of the Great Conjunction? Where are the lessons we need to learn? And then when will the war in Ukraine cease? And so on. Many questions about Ukraine, obviously. Then the fifth question is, what is your opinion? Is your opinion still that the housing market will go down between April and August? And then the seventh, the last question, do you see a correlation between what's going on now and the nodes of the moon bringing these karmic experiences for us to resolve? Okay, so we'll be working on all of these things. The first question, yes, the moon in your natal chart does hold the key to what is accumulating in you. But I'm going to back up and just give a quick overview of the philosophical backdrop of how astrology works. There was a mythological, maybe a literal human being named Hermes Trismegistus in ancient Greece and in ancient Egypt. Hermes and Thoth, which are basically stand-ins for Mercury, got combined. If you're not muted, please mute yourself. So Yes,
trying
can
to
everybody
disconnect.
please mute? I'll wait.
Papa, if you. Oh my God.
Help me.
If you go to the list of participants, you can mute everyone. You can hit mute all.
Where is that?
You go to participants on the bottom,
I see.
and if you click there, you should be able to go.
Okay, I got it. Thanks. Appreciate it. Anyhow, Hermes Trismegistus had 7 principles, and I'll go through them, quickly. The first is that all is the mind. Everything starts in the mind, and the universal mind is the origin of everything that exists. The second is the principle of correspondence, which is simple version: as above, so below; as below, so above; as within, so without; as without, so within. Basically, it's the microcosm and the macrocosm are one. This is a very important aspect, that we view what goes on in the world as having something to do and correlating with something that goes on inside of us, which, as we go through these other questions, it'll become very obvious of some things that we might need to be doing in our own personal lives now. The third principle is called the principle of vibration, and simply means everything is in motion. Nothing in creation stays the same. It's all impermanent. And then there is the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has a pair of opposites, like and unlike are the same, and so on. The principle of rhythm, everything flows in and out. There's a season for everything. It comes and it goes. You plant it, it grows, you harvest, the plant dies, and so on. So the sixth principle is called the principle of cause and effect. For everything there is a cause, and for every cause there is an effect. Everything happens according to this law. And the principle of gender is that there is a masculine and feminine component to everything. Now, why this is important is that, and we could spend the whole time talking about this, but Leela's question about, junk falling on the moon. Well, the space between the moon and the earth is full of space junk now, which mirrors what's going on the planet. We are trashing the planet. And it is also true that in our aura and in our mental life, there is so much going on. There's so much extraneous stuff that we need to get rid of. And that is all part of the process of what's going on. Now, the third question, the second question, the fourth question, the sixth question, all had to do with Russia and Ukraine. And I'll take some time with that. But right now, I wanted to go on to the third question, which came from Judy Luther. And she was asking about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. I assume it was a typo when she said that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction set the pattern for the next 200 years. It actually sets the pattern for the next 20 years. And every 20 years, they expand and contract. Now, I'm going to share something on the screen now. If you can see this, this is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. I set it up for Washington, D.C., but it could be for anywhere.
We can't see it.
You can't see it?
No.
I have screen share in front of me. It says I'm sharing.
It says you're sharing, but that's what we see, that you're sharing, but we don't see the image of what you're sharing.
I wonder why. I apologize to everybody. I'm not technically savvy. Okay, I stopped it, but this will be rugged if I can't show you any of these charts because I got a basket of them.
There is a second button that you push.
Oh.
Screen share initiates it, and there's a second one that says share screen.
Okay, let
You
me
want to
see.
give it another try.
Okay, goody. Let me give it a shot. Okay. Okay, screen share. Okay. Share. Can you see it? Okay, good. Thank you. And, you know, I don't know where I would be in life if it wasn't for the fact that so many of you keep me up on this high-tech stuff. Anyway, this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, I set it up for Washington, D.C., but it could have been set up for anywhere in the world at this exact moment. So what does Jupiter conjunct Saturn mean? You can think of Jupiter and Saturn as like an accordion, you know, going in and going out. When we have a 10-year period of expansion and then a 10-year period of contraction. In the 19th century, we'll go back to the 20th century here. I'll make it quick. From 1900 to 1910, we had a period of expansion, and then from 1910 to 1920, a period of contraction. It happened that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction just happened to fall on these, you know, even numbered years during that century, and in this century as well. Then from 1920 to 1930, we had the Roaring 20s. It's a period of great expansion. And then from 1930 to 1940, we had the Great Depression, a period of contraction. This was globally. I mean, it affected different countries and different people in different ways. Then from 1930 to 1940, we had this contraction. And then from 40 to 50, a big period of expansion. And then from 50 to 60, it was a big period of contraction. And then the expansion, again, the 60s were, you know, time of great expansion. And then from 70 to 80 was contraction. And then from 1980 to 1990 was a period of expansion. Again, there's usually a great optimism. And in case you have forgotten, and all of you, I'm sure on this call, were alive at the time. You know, 1980, when Ronald Reagan came into office, there was this big explosion of optimism. It's like business is going to boom, you know, get government off our backs and blah, blah, blah. And this big push forward. And then from 1990 to 2000, we had this period of contraction, a consolidation, and so on. But why I'm sharing this is that if we spent the time to take each one of these decades apart, we would notice that it all goes back to the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. And why this is important is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction took place in an air sign. The conjunction in 1980 took place in Libra, but then it went back to Earth in 1990. But this is the, you know, final, you know, from now on for hundreds of years, Jupiter and Saturn will conjunct in air signs. And air has to do with the abstract. Aquarius has to do with technology. So we'll see this big explosion of interest in the technology. Now, the question was asked, will we see revision in the financial systems? And I wanted to share, North Node of the Moon at the time of the conjunction was in the second house, which is money, and in Gemini, which is, you know, paper, ideas, duality, and so on. Yes, and we'll see cryptocurrency taking off big time, and, you know, all of the things that we would normally associate with the new, the innovative. But it's not a straight climb up the mountain. Now, this conjunction happened right after the winter solstice. And in the winter solstice chart, we had the sun in trying to Uranus and the ascendant. Again, anywhere in the world, the sun would be trying Uranus, but just in Washington, we would have this sun to the ascendant. So it, again, these planets are in Earth. So many of you might have asked me through the last, 5 years or so, how about investing in cryptocurrency? And I've always said, I don't understand it. I can't suggest getting involved in something that I don't understand. And here, Jupiter and Saturn are squaring Uranus. So that makes it very dicey. And there'll be, as Grace Morris said in her December newsletter about the, Jupiter Saturn conjunction, she says, yeah, if you can withstand losing $6,000 a day, maybe investing in cryptocurrency isn't such a bad idea. But if you're not interested in living on the wild side of things, then no, it's not a great idea. Now, also in this chart, Pluto, Lord of the underworld, is very close to the midheaven. And look at Mars is in Aries, squaring Pluto. Mars squaring Pluto is very violent. And with what's going on in the world today, we can see, okay, maybe there's some gravity to this that we ought to take note on. And yes, in 10 years from now, there will be a form of world currency that will be like what we call cryptocurrency today, but it won't be in the exact form that we see right now. And, they call cryptocurrency the Wild West, and it certainly is. This is a, crazy, crazy space. Anyway, again, with all of these questions, we could spend the entire time talking on them, but I want to move on to the question of Russia, Ukraine peace. Before I dive into this, I wanted to say two things that are preliminary to this whole discussion today, although I jumped in with both feet on these two questions. As my master, Meher Baba, said, astrology is the perfect science. 1 out of 1,000,000 astrologers understands it. I don't claim to have any divine knowledge on this. I'm like one of the blind men reaching out and touching the elephant. I got the picture that I got. And as I said to somebody who had written me recently, well, what you're saying in your newsletter, a lot, you give good information, and then this other stuff is opinion. Well, everything I say in my newsletter is my opinion. That's the way it has to be. So the second thing I wanted to say is astrologers tend to see what they want to see, i.e. their favorite candidate winning an election, something they fear coming to pass. We have a mind, and our individual mind colors what it is that we take in. And it is only when you are completely detached, where you really don't have any preferences, that you have an opportunity, not a guarantee, but an opportunity to see clearly what is going on. And I can tell you, I strive for that every single day in my newsletter, my question and answer sessions, and in my work with my clients. And I've certainly been wrong a number of times about things. And in retrospect, I can see, well, some of this was maybe wishful thinking or fear-based, whatever. But my point is, I wanted to share with you now what I think of as the most important question, which is that we're all, I know, glued to the news, trying to figure it out, what's going on in this strange thing where for no apparent reason on the surface, Russia attacks Ukraine, an independent country, for no apparent reason and with no provocation. So again, I want to, again, I'm going to look at this from a number of different angles. And I'm hoping to give you here something that you can lean on that's worthwhile on this. The Soviet Union dissolved, which Vladimir Putin says was the single worst thing to happen in the 20th century. But I'm going to show you the chart that we have for Russia. This is the chart set up for when the Soviet Union dissolved and countries were going their own way. This is the moment that Russia became, the Russian Federation. And if you look at this here, it's kind of interesting. Look at all these planets here in the 5th, and Neptune has just crossed into the 6th house. But it's a very packed chart oriented toward expansion, showing the world, doing something. Now, the moon is conjunct Neptune and Uranus and trine Jupiter. Those of you who have been in discussions, Donald Trump's chart from the past and stuff, and I said, the Jupiter trine Uranus is his get out of jail free card. Why? He's never seemed to be ever held accountable for things. Jupiter's on one side of Saturn and Uranus is on the other, and it's a lucky aspect. And this trine shows, again, Jupiter in this chart is in the 2nd house. And what happened is under Vladimir Putin, the economy took off. And if you talk to people in Russia at the time, they say, yeah, we know we live in a dictatorship, but who cares? We're, making money, we're modernizing, life is getting better, which was the deal at the time. Now, I'm going to show you a chart of Russia progressed today. And this may give you some insight into it, because you realize that Russia has fallen on hard times. Well, Neptune can be the planet of spirituality. It can also be the planet of illusion, delusion, make-believe, fantasy. And the sun, which in the chart of birth of the Russia was semi-sextile to natal Neptune. Here, the natal chart is on the inside and the progressed positions are on the outside of the wheel here. Well, if you look at the sun is just crossed over the progressed Neptune. I can show you the progressed chart, but I'm trying to keep this a little bit simpler. But my point is here that Russia is coming out from under a delusion with the progressed sun in Capricorn. Capricorn is the planet of facing hard facts, hard reality. Now, the progressed midheaven and progressed Pluto have just finished their opposition to each other. Pluto is all or nothing. So this is this is a time of rolling the dice. And with the progressed moon right now coming to the square of progressed midheaven and the square to Pluto, it does not argue very well for the immediate ongoing prospects for Russia. Now, by the way, I hate it when I'm reading a 20-page article and the astrologer saying they're going to tell me who's going to win the election. They're going to tell me, and I have to go through 30 pages of stuff before I get to the bottom line. Let me go to the bottom line. I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff, but my honest appraisal of this is this war is going to go on for a long time. I don't wish it to be so. The astrology of it suggests it to me. And common sense tells me that unless we're going to have a nuclear war, it's going to go on a long time. I hope that I'm wrong, but we'll see. And I'm going to show you some things here that, I think will maybe help bring us on board in what's happening here. Okay, so let me see, screen share. This is what I want to share with you is the chart of Ukraine. Again, now I got to share with you, you're going to see slightly different charts for the Ukraine. And one of the people that, is, the father of mundane astrology in the world today, since André Barbeau passed away, the great French astrologer, is Nick Campion. And he studied, he's got the book called the Book of World Horoscopes, which, he tells exactly why different countries have different, charts and stuff. He has a chart where he set this chart up for England at 6 p.m. And I set it up for Kiev at 6 p.m. And this chart works for me. Again, we have Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus trine. Okay, very similar to the Soviet Union's chart. Very similar to the Russian Federation's chart. But here we've got Uranus, we got Jupiter, the sun is in Sagittarius, the moon is in Libra, and the moon is applying to Venus in the 5th house. Eulogizing on this, I would say the 5th house is showing something to the public, to the world. Libra is the sign of harmony. Venus is the sign of peace. Jupiter is in the 4th house, which is the land, and Neptune, Uranus is in the 7th house, which in a national chart is interactions with foreign countries. Now, if we look at the progress chart for Uranus, for the Ukraine today, I will show you something that is, I think, pretty amazing. Okay. Let me get back to where I am here. Okay. Screen share. Okay, fine. Here. If we look at the chart, progressed to now, the sun, the progressed sun, is conjuncting the north node of the moon. And north node of the moon is Dharma. Now, Dharma means it's our destiny. It's what we're supposed to be doing. And the south node of the moon being something that pulls us toward the past. Okay, well, the sun is coming to the conjunction of the north node of the moon, and this will go on for a good year and a half, 2 years. And then when the sun comes to Uranus, things will suddenly change. And I believe that that will be the time that something happens between Ukraine and foreign countries. Again, Uranus here rules the ninth house, that will bring an end to this war. And I can show you in the chart why the war is going on now. Okay, so I think it's fascinating. I was not somebody who studied. I mean, I studied Putin's charts some in the past because the guy's a complete sociopath. And living in an alternate reality. But let's look at Zelensky's chart here. So this, by the way, this birth information is rated A, meaning that it's hard to question the validity of it. But so he's got his sun conjunct Venus in wait a second.
Do you want to show us the chart?
Yeah, thank you. Again, wow. Here we go. Here's his sun is in the ninth house, which is foreign countries. Venus is the planet of love, beauty. People with sun conjunct Venus are likable, but it is trine his north node of the moon in Libra, which is his dharma for the lifetime is to make peace. Now, what I find fascinating about this is that the sun and Venus are opposite Mars. Venus rules the north node of the moon, and Mars rules the south node of the moon, things that pull us toward the past. But the north node of the moon being trine Venus Sun, the stronger pull and the harmony is come by going forward with his destiny. Now, you know, he was a television personality before entering the public arena. And apparently he was quite popular. He won with, what was it, 71, 72% of the vote when he ran for president. You know, there were like 40 people running for president. He beat out everybody and he was down to 2. And then in the final election, he got somewhere, it was over 70%, but it was large, larger than any US president would have won an election. Now, again, the sun, the moon here at the bottom of the chart, squaring Uranus, which is squaring his midheaven, you would assume Uranus brings abrupt changes in the sixth house, jobs, daily habit and stuff. But now I'm going to show you his progress chart because I think that it again is fascinating. Okay, we got to do the screen share thing here again. Screen share. Share, okay, fine. Okay. This is Zelensky's chart progressed to right now. You see where his progressed midheaven is here? At 4 degrees of, Venus and Mars are fairly close, and the moon, all of these in the beginning of, in the early, first 8 degrees of Aries. Mars is at, his natal chart is at 0 degrees of Leo. So Mars and Venus they're conjunct each other, first of all, ahead, Mercury and the heart, Venus together in Aries, the sign of the fight. And they're in trine to this natal Mars. Now, Mars retrograde in the natal chart would argue against him, even though Mars is in Leo. Mars in Leo in the third house shows a bombastic, dramatic speech. And you can see that, the head and the heart being connected to Venus and to Mars and Mercury shows it's a very, very powerful combination. But there's more. For those of you who are following the transiting planets now, where is Saturn? Saturn is transiting over his midheaven. Now, for those of you who study astrology, you can follow this. It's one of those charms. It works like, golden. When Saturn comes to the midheaven, it's chickens coming home to roost. We harvest the karma, the reward or punishment that we have to have in the lifetime. And it's only going to happen once every 30 years. So he's young, he'll have another one if he lives that long, and you never know. But here, what my point is, he's got Saturn transiting over his midheaven right now, which means this is it. He's the man for the time. He's the man of the hour, so to speak. So there's always more. We could, like take his chart apart forever. I wanted to jump ahead though and show you. Wait a second, I got somebody in the waiting room. So let me see who it is. Okay. Okay, so what I've got here in the next thing that I wanted to show you was Putin's chart. Let me go to screen share again here. So what is fascinating about this, again, Putin's chart is not, every astrologer that I know uses this chart for Putin, but there's a lot of others in circulation, and he was in the KGB, and it was their policy to lie about anything having to do with people's personal lives. And so there's a number of other charts. This one seems to work. The sun in Libra, moon in Gemini, Scorpio rising, and Venus in Scorpio in the first house. There's a certain magnetic quality. I like it best, when years ago, when our president, who wasn't the president at the time, meeting Vladimir Putin, said, "I've looked into his eyes and the man has no soul," which was a mirror of what George W. Bush had said when he met Putin. He says, "Well, I've looked into his eyes and I've seen his soul." But here, the south node of the moon is in Leo on the midheaven, conjunct Pluto, which is not only the pattern of a narcissist, but is somebody who would maintain power at any cost, which pretty much describes what has been done, all through his long political life. He's, charmed people and then assassinated or killed or, exterminated, got rid of anybody who wasn't 100% in his corner. So, this is the backdrop. Now, remember when we were looking at Zelensky's chart, he had 20 degrees of Aquarius on his midheaven, and transiting Saturn is there right now. Well, Putin has transiting Saturn on his fourth house cusp. What does this mean? Traditional astrological knowledge is when Saturn goes over your midheaven is a harvest cycle. You get the reward that's coming to you. And then you're in this period of, resting on your laurels until Saturn goes over your ascendant. And then this is what Grant Louis called the quadrant of obscurity. And then when Saturn goes over your fourth house cusp, either you start on a new path entirely, or you go into complete obscurity. And so this is the moment that we have Putin in right now. I'm going to show you his progressed chart right now, because it has some information to reveal to us. So here we'll take a look at what he has going on. He's oh God, I'm sorry, I got the wrong chart up here. Well, let me see if I can redo this here. This is the progress chart for Putin. His progressed Mars is right down here. Again, Mars is energy, it's the god of war. Squaring, it's coming to the square of Jupiter. Transiting Saturn is right here. This does not argue well for him. And, as Saturn crosses over the descendant, which it will next month, and then it will oppose Pluto, which is very difficult for his physical health, his physical body, because Pluto rules his physical body, but has also his position of power. Now, it is easy to see with his progressed sun sextile his natal Mercury that he embarked on this pattern of adventure. 11th house, he thought he could sell it to his general public. And for the most part, he's been, pretty good. I actually have friends in Russia and friends in the Ukraine. And if anybody had any doubts about the virtue of having a free press, you should see what people in Russia are getting fed. And when Donald Trump said in his first time in his first year in the presidency that the free press was the enemy of the people, which is exactly what Hitler had said, which is, of course, one of his heroes, as is Vladimir Putin. But what we can see is that things don't look very good for Putin or Russia right now. Again, I could go on, but another question has been asked here on this. What's the impact on the U.S. elections? Well, obviously, Russia tinkered in the U.S. election, and we have time. We'll go back to it again. The fifth question here was, do I see the housing market take a nosedive or going down between April and August? And I need to say I'm in a minority position on this. And it could be, you could argue, wishful thinking on my part. Grace Morris is the person, the financial astrologer that I've taken for the last 12 years I've followed her more closely than any other financial astrologer because she's right 90% of the time on most everything. She was dead wrong on the housing market. She said it was going to top in 2018, 2019. And I asked her, I says, Grace, when is it going to top? Because it keeps going up. And she doubled down, being a Leo. That she says, oh no, it's already topped. But obviously the housing market's exploding everywhere. There have been signs that it is slowing down already. And I, as a thinking person, when I see something happening astrologically, I want to find what the underlying fundamentals are in the economy and the political spectrum, everything, because it's not likely to be a bolt out of the blue, like Uranus. It's usually going to show up in Jupiter, Saturn, and all of the stuff. And it looks like everything is very overheated. But I can tell you, in next month, mid-April, with Jupiter and Neptune coming together in their 12 or 13-year cycle of conjunction in Pisces, I think that we'll start large-scale fantasy and panic simultaneously. And it will have a jaded effect on speculators. And both cryptocurrency and the housing market will seem like less safe investments. Now, globally, we have tremendous amounts of currency chasing too few safe investments. And that is, one of the sparks of this inflationary spiral that we're in. There's many other factors, but and long conversations with another financial astrologer, Georgia Stathis, who wrote the book Turning Through Time, and Financial Astrology, Business Astrology 101. And she's a very fine astrologer. She and I had determined in mutual sharing of data that the housing market was sometime between mid-April and the end of August will take some kind of a nosedive. Now, again, it seems like a pretty important factor. People sitting on the fence trying to decide, well, should I buy a house now or wait? It just depends on what your, the financial circumstances are and what you think makes sense. I can tell you, it would be terrible. A really, really, really good friend of mine bought a house 2 weeks before the market crashed back in 2008, and they're still underwater. To be fair, they didn't ask me if they should do that or not, because it didn't take a genius. Almost every astrologer that I know saw the crash in 2008 coming in advance and positioned themselves correctly. Anyway, now there was one more question that came in about the moon's nodes and what we should be doing with the north node of the moon in Taurus, which means the south node of the moon is in Scorpio. And I wanted to say a few words on this because I think it is important. That we watch the nodal cycle happen. Nodes spend about 18 months in a sign. And from January 2022 until July of 2023, the north node of the moon will be in Taurus. Well, Taurus is about establishing a sense of self-worth, a sense of priority and value. It's the enjoyment of life, facing commitments. And so this will be a time it would behoove anybody to concentrate on looking at how they evaluate themselves, what their personal values are about, who they are loyal to, why they're loyal, and to establish boundaries, to be aware of the boundaries between them and others, and to learn to really honor the expressed needs of themselves and other people, and to have some faith that whatever is good. Mentally, it's really important during this time to have a developed sense of patience and persistence, to be incremental, to take one step at a time with everything that you are involved with, and to be forgiving, and to have a sense of gratitude for what goes on, to enjoy your five senses, and to bond with nature, and to recognize that the natural world is there for our support, nurturing, and enjoyment. Again, with the south node of the moon in Scorpio, it's good to take note of the things we want to be releasing, to be able to grow beyond. And part of it is to overcome a negative picture of other people, to not judge other people, to not distrust their motivation. We have to learn to cooperate and to not resist other people's, asking us for help, and to being too resentful. Scorpio is all or nothing. So we tend to overreact, and to overcome the tendency to overreact right now is a good thing. And as a senator, 30 years ago said, as senators, we can disagree with each other, but it's terrible when we back into this condescension of distrusting each other's motivation, which is pure Scorpio and the South Node reaction to others. So giving other people the benefit of the doubt, learning to not judge them, and to give up being impatient with others and with ourselves, and to give up the preoccupation for being attracted to crisis situations, to having inappropriate, intense reactions to other people. There's an obsessive compulsive tendency of the South Node of the Moon in Scorpio. Another thing is, because it's all or nothing, sometimes we tend to not want to go back in the kitchen because we burnt our hand on the stove. We can destroy a whole item of experience because we're trying to eliminate one part of it. It would be this would be apropos to dropping an atomic bomb on Russia because we don't like Putin. In other words, it's learning to be patient, procedural, taking one step at a time. The question was asked that I didn't directly address. Is this war in Ukraine, is it right that we're not establishing a no-fly zone? And one of my compatriots asked me this question, not on this call, but prior to this, and they were asking me, well, what should we do? And I'm saying, look, we have to have a separation here. If I was in a position of power, we'd be in World War III already. And it's like I would have done stuff that I know is not right. because it's, again, south node of the moon in Scorpio is that compulsive urge to get on with it, to take on, the evil doers, so to speak. As my daddy used to say, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And that is certainly true. That doesn't mean that we should do nothing. As Edmund Burke, and I've quoted it many times in recent days, had said, I got it written down here, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And another famous quote from Edmund Burke, nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could do only a little. And each of us has something to do in our own way. It's easy to give money to the struggle in Ukraine. It's hard to get the right frame of mind for being a good citizen of the world, to stand up for a positive value, but just to remember that hate begets hate and love begets love. And unless we can all learn collectively to live in that higher vibration, we're destined to defeat our own expressed goals. After the Second World War, the Versailles Treaty made the reparations on Germany so difficult that it literally guaranteed that there would be a Second World War. And it's the same kind of thing that we're in now. It's like, as this expression goes, hate the sin, but love the sinner. Well, I thank you for indulging me and spending a little time with me today. I hope that I answered your questions in a way that you found useful and helpful. If you missed the session today or missed part of it, hopefully the recording came out and it'll be on YouTube in a day or so. But thank you and have a great rest of the weekend. Do good. Love you all. Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Thank you.